Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome, brothers and sisters. I pray that you are all well. This is Ihsan, and sending my salams from sunny England. It's quite cold at the moment, actually. I wanted to talk about, actually, one of my favorite movies. It's a movie recommendation. One of my favorite movies of all time, and it's called Gattaca. And very briefly, the story of Gattaca, it's starring Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, Jude Law, and essentially it's the story of human potential. What is possible for a human being? And I'll explain how this relates to spirituality, because the truth is that in reality, human potential is awakened through spirituality, through the power of the spirit, that which is connected to that which is beyond this world, to the source of human potential. So the story is basically, it takes place at some time in the near, not so distant future, in which human beings are essentially genetically engineered, in which human beings are genetically programmed from birth for their potential, to have the best chance at success and health and everything else. And so the main character of the story, played by Ethan Hawke, his name is Vincent, he is what is called a godchild, which is just a term that refers to people who didn't go the scientific route and conceived naturally. So his parents essentially conceived him naturally out of love. They call it a love child, or a godchild, a love birth, which means, like I said, that they didn't use so-called science, but rather relied on God to produce what was destined. And interestingly, you see already right here this juxtaposition of God versus science, this new false God that we are being programmed to idolize and essentially bow down to, this strange new God called science. So in the movie, they juxtapose this, and this is a film that was made back, I believe it was in the 90s. So he's what's known as a godchild, a natural birth. And, his potential is when they look at his genetic code, right, he's got a high chance of heart problems, high chance of mental problems, things like that. Right? There's this genetic predisposition to addictive behavior and so on. And so after his parents conceive or have him naturally, their second child, their second son, Anton, is a scientifically engineered child, right? They go the genetic route, and of course they program him with the best possible potential. And so the story is now the dreams that Vincent has, right? As this sort of natural birth, he's got these dreams. He wants to be an astronaut. He wants to reach into space. But of course, they will only take the most competent candidates, those with the highest potential of success. And basically, in this dystopian or near dystopian future, human beings are discriminated against now. As he says, now we've got discrimination down to a science. They're discriminated against based on their genetic code. It's no longer the color of your skin or your cultural background, but it's really your genetics. And basically, your DNA is your resume. But he's got this dream. He wants to be a pilot. He wants to be an astronaut. Yet there's no way that he can get into the space program at Gattaca based on his genetics, right? They just simply won't accept him. So what he does is he takes on the identity of another person, another one who's got so-called superior genetic code, and this character is played by Jude Law. Except that Jude Law has had an accident, which is not on record, so he himself is not capable of performing, of doing really much at this point because he's crippled. So he basically sells his genetic identity to Ethan Hawke's character, to Vincent, who then pretends to be his character, Jerome Morrow, and gets into Gattaca based on his genetic code. But of course, that's just the entry point, right? Then he still has to outperform everyone who is technically genetically superior to him. But he has determination, he has love, he has passion, he has commitment, he has belief. And so he actually becomes one of the top candidates at Gattaca for his program. And he is now scheduled to actually launch into space and to reach, to the moon of Titan in this story. Basically his dream, right, to be an astronaut, to return back into space, to be back amongst the stars. So he makes it ultimately. I'm going to try to avoid too many spoilers. But there is this sort of situation between him and his brother, who is genetically superior, yet Ethan Hawke's character ultimately ends up outperforming him because of his faith, because of his belief, because of something that can't be quantified, and that's the power of the human spirit. And the story is interesting because it's about returning to the stars, and he talks about this in the film, right? It's almost like going home. What does this mean? So we're talking about human potential. We're talking about journey into space, which is really a journey to the stars, which is a journey back to where we actually come from, right? We're all made of stardust. We're all made of elements and matter that comes from stars. And so in a sense, this whole story is about returning home, returning to the divine, returning to our source, to where we come from. That's what drives human potential. That is what ultimately awakens and unlocks and unlimits human potential. And that's his dream, to get back to the stars, to get back to the heavens, to get back to his source. And that dream enables him to do what would have technically been practically impossible for him to do. So it's the story of human potential. It's the story of how human potential can lead a human being back to their source, to God, to the divine. When we look at traditional spirituality, Islamic spirituality, we remember that human potential is awakened with the divine attributes of Allah, that when these attributes of the divine are awakened within the human being, that is what draws us near unto the divine, unto the Creator. Some of the greatest examples of human potential are the prophets of God, the Anbiya, the Mursaleen, some of the greatest amongst them, the Prophet Muhammad, the Prophet Jesus, the Prophet Moses, the Prophet Abraham. When we look at the miracles of some of these great messengers and prophets of God, we see what is possible for human beings when human potential is awakened through the power of the Spirit. There's no other way to tap into human potential. And now modern science, modern physics, quantum physics recognizes the near limitless potential within creation and within consciousness. But the key to tapping into that potential is beyond the realm of science. They can't access that. That's the realm of spirituality. That's the power and the capacity of the human spirit. Spirituality is the key to human potential. And that's what I take away from a film like this. That by tapping into the source of what we truly are, we can begin to discover what is possible. And this is literally what he says in the movie, right? It's about possibilities. So when we talk about possibilities, we're reminded of quantum physics again, which is the field, the domain of infinite possibilities. It's the field of possibilities and potential. The manifest world is that which is manifest, it's potential, actualized or realized. But the quantum field, the quantum domain, the quantum realm is just pure possibility, pure potential. And that is the realm of spirit. That's the realm of the unseen. That's the realm of just pure energy, which spirit has access to. And it is this that then is the key to human potential. So Gattaca, it's a great film. This is a fairly short video, just a movie recommendation about human potential and how human potential leads us to the divine, and how greatness, right, which is the actualization of human potential, leads to He who is great. And we have to always remember, though, this is the distinction, that the greatness that is possible for the human being is not us. It's not from the self. It's from precisely that which is beyond the self, and why we can never claim greatness. Greatness must always be ascribed to Allah, to God, the Creator. And hence we say, Allahu Akbar. God is great. God is greater. He's the source of greatness. And when that greatness is actualized in the human potential, in the human being, that then is the awakening of the deputy of Allah, the Khalifa of Allah, the vicegerent of God, who's not empty, who has divine power, but it's not, and again, it's not power from the self, it's power from beyond. The moment we ascribe greatness and power to ourselves, we fail, we collapse. Then we slip into idolatry of the self and shirk, right? Real excellence in spirituality and development is the actualization of potential, the realization of it, the manifestation of it, the awakening of human potential. Yet, that is only possible through complete transcendence of the self, of the ego, of the mind, and the connection to the source, the spirit. That's what fuels us. That's what will fuel ultimately human potential. And that is the next stage for human development, for human evolution. It's been actualized, it's been realized in individuals throughout human history. But now, inshallah, with God's will, it is time for this to be more accessible to those who are seeking throughout the human race, because darkness is increasing in the world, and so too must then the power of light. May Allah Almighty keep you and keep us all, inshallah ta'ala, established and grounded, connected to, immersed and surrounded by the light, His divine light, the power of His divine light and presence. to your divine and eternal success. Fi aman Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.